you need to execute a two-hand jab. You need to try and get solid control over him, or at least jar the heck out of him to make him not want to continue doing that. You are watching and listening to the Indy Drills Podcast. You know what we do here. We talk about covering wide receivers, stopping quarterbacks, and shutting down offenses. That's what we do on this show. Appreciate you joining me for another episode as we go steaming along into the NFL and college football season. Real quick out there, who's the number one college football team in the country? Is it Ohio State? Is it Oregon? No, I think it's the guys from Coral Gables, the University of Miami. But hey, feel free to disagree with me. Answer that for me down below. Who do you think right now is the number one football team in college football? You let me know that right now. Coming up on the show today, I'm going to tell you why you need a brain to play defensive back. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about one-hand or two-hand jams. User question comes out there, and we're going to discuss that on the show. Then we're going to talk about baiting the quarterback. Wouldn't we all love to do that? That just turns into the big plays that we love, interceptions and things of that nature. That and more coming up on the show today. If this is your first time here, feel free to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you're watching me on YouTube, hit the bell as well so you don't miss out on another great Indy Drills podcast coming your way. If you're listening on a streaming device, appreciate you joining me in. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you love talking about defensive back play, because this is definitely the place to be. Not a whole lot. We're playing games, so we're into the season, so there isn't a whole bunch of DB news. Which is crazy because the games are actually being played. But, the offseason brings a lot of the news. Just great to see. I'm coming to you right after a Monday Night Football game with the Jaguars. And I can say this, upset the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, look, the Chiefs have done so much in the game over the last 5 years. Anytime they lose, it's pretty much an upset. And so when you lose to a team like the Jaguars, who have not had a ton of success in this league of late, in the last decade, it's definitely an upset. But this is a different Jaguars team, as we were made to see last night on Monday Night Football. They're a 3-1 football team. They did go out west and beat the San Francisco 49ers. Take what you may from the situation the San Francisco 49ers are in right now. This is, however, the same San Francisco 49ers that went and beat the Rams last week. But the Jaguars were good enough to head all the way out west and get a victory there. So we're going to have to start changing the way we think and feel about Jacksonville. Their coach, Liam Cohen, is now the winningest Jaguars coach in the first 5 games of his coaching tenure there. No other Jaguars coach has done what he has done through the first 5 games, which is be 4-1. And they turned in a marvelous performance last night. And the most exciting play in that entire game was Devin Lloyd, who's leading the NFL in interceptions. Linebacker Devin Lloyd dropping back into the hook after faking a blitz, picking off a Patrick Mahomes pass, and proceeding to go coast to coast, 99 yards with it. Very exciting play. If you haven't had a chance to see it, come from under that rock that you're under and go find that play. All linebackers should be very, very proud of that, as well as defensive coordinators as well. For all the times you thought about dropping a guy that was about to blitz into a hook and hoping it would work, there's evidence that it does work. It absolutely does indeed work. Devin Lloyd showed you, and he goes coast to coast, making a huge play in the game. I would dare say that was the play that kind of turned the game around for the Jacksonville Jaguars, because it looked early on like this was just going to be another one of those Kansas City Chiefs primetime victories, and Devin Lloyd's play certainly turned that in a different direction. Yeah, I want to talk about a player here. I'm a little late to the party on this, I will admit, but I'm not one to go jump on and grab up on all of the hype for a play. I kind of let things play out a little bit before I start getting on there. But this young man, Jayquan Snell, out of Waxahachie, I hope I said that right, high school in Texas, 6'3", 395-pound safety. Oh, yeah. Go find those highlights. If you have not watched this young man play, who's in his junior season there, a class of 2027, I want to say. Is that what we're on, class of 2027? Listen, I dare say this kid gives me Sean Taylor vibes. Why do I say that? Obviously, the dimensions. He's, like I said, 6'3", 195 pounds, got some really good speed, an explosive player, and that explosion really shows up on contact and impact when he is making a tackle. Quite often, this man stops people in their tracks and then sends them backwards. And if you play this game, you know that's a very difficult thing to do. The ball carrier is coming at you with force. You're coming at him with force. A lot of times, the best you can hope for is a stalemate right there. So the runner doesn't gain any more yards once he impacts you. That's usually the best case scenario for us when we're making tackles on defense, especially in the secondary, where a lot of times the tackles that we make are on a player that's generated a certain amount of speed. You know, those guys in the front seven, defensive linemen, linebackers, most of the time too, you're tackling a back that hasn't really had a chance to get going, or a quarterback who's running with the ball who really hasn't had a chance to get going. But for us in that back end, by the time they get to us, they've generated a good amount of speed. So taking a guy with that amount of speed and force and sometimes mass and stopping him and then sending him backwards is only a few have been able to do that consistently. And when I turn on Jayquan Snell's film, he's doing this quite often. And that's nothing but just good technique, number one, and some explosion. This young man was very, very impressive on film. But it's not only just the hitting, not just the booming hits. He can cover as well. I watched this kid pick off a fade from the number 3 receiver. We could talk about why that was being run, but hey, why not? You know, for your offensive guys, the slot fades have been killing it. Why not run one from 3? And I watched him cover it to perfection. Not only cover it for the pass breakup, he got an interception right by the sidelines. Okay, so the receiver started at number 3. And for you guys that are kind of new to the game, number 3 is the receiver in a trip set that's closest to the line. Okay, he's closest to that tackle. Bowed all the way out on a fade. And this kid covered it, jumped up, got an interception. So you watch this film, it's action-packed. If he's not blowing up a guy on a tackle, he's getting a pass breakup, or he's providing solid coverage, or he's ripping a ball out of someone's hands, or he's getting an interception. There is quality production on each and every clip that is on his highlight video, and and that's the sophomore year. So he's already been going crazy his junior year. I don't even know what his senior year will look like. That's if the young man doesn't, reclassify, because, he might have just proven everything he needs to prove after this whole high school year is over. But if you want to be entertained and you want to see a high school defensive back at the top of his game, go check out Jayquan Snell. Like I said, he gives Sean Taylor vibes. I don't want to blaspheme. Sean Taylor is a legend. And a one of a kind, but this kid gives those kind of vibes. You guys watch that and let me know if you're getting that same kind of feeling when you watch him play. All right, leading into my first topic here, and that is your brain in this game if you're playing in that back half. I recently asked a question about how important is an IQ. Is it okay to not have an IQ if you have good size and speed? Is IQ cool, but you'd rather have technique? I put IQ up against all these other factors. So height, weight, speed, technique, ball skills, all that. And I was surprised to see guys really say IQ would probably be last on the list. Almost. That was kind of the dominant answer. Would rather have height and speed, would rather have great technique. Little surprised by that. I'm here to tell you guys, you want IQ almost over everything. All right. And I'm just making the assumption that you have the minimum amount of physical characteristics to play in the secondary. I'm not sitting here saying you got 2 left feet, you got no speed, you can't run at all, and you're 5'5". That's not what I'm saying. If you have the minimum requirements physically to be out there in this day and age, I'm telling you, you want an IQ over everything. You want an IQ over everything. The number one thing for me when I was coaching was to have smart players. Okay, smart players will bail you out of situations. Smart players just seem to be around the football. Smart players don't bust coverages. Smart players just kind of understand what the offense is doing, and they're able to make plays. I've had players with a tremendous amount of physical ability, but no real ability to think and sort out what is happening in front of them. And while they might look good in their pads and they will occasionally make the play, they'll run into a tackle or a ball will get thrown right to them. And then the ball ends up in their hands and they look really great running around with the ball heading the other way in it. I'm here to tell you, I don't want to live that life of those plays being few and far in between. I don't want 7 plays of, oh, what? And then that one play that you might get where they do something spectacular.
If you're a brand new coach and you've been thrusted into a job and you're kind of overwhelmed, I've got a great resource for you. The All Eyes DB Camp members area will get you up to speed so you can get your guys in the right position to make plays and make you look like an all-star coach. I've got everything in there from quizzes, coverages explained, technique breakdowns, strategy sessions, everything you need to ramp up your coaching ability and turn your guys into playmakers. Hit the link down below. Come join us in the All Eyes DB Camp members area. Greatness awaits you.
I'm not into getting teased when I'm a coach. I want you to be where you need to be. I want you to make the play the way that you need to make it. I need you to have the proper leverage, be in the proper zone, make the proper calls, match up on the right receiver. I need those things, and I think I'm speaking for the majority, overwhelming majority of coaches when I say that. There are coaches that are going to tell you it's about the Jimmies and the Joes. It most definitely is. Part of being the Jimmies and the Joes is an IQ. Jimmies and Joes is not just be 6'5" and not just run 4.2. That's not the sole description of a Jimmy and a Joe. A Jimmy and a Joe is a playmaker. Okay. Tyrann Mathieu, that's a Jimmy and a Joe. Now, he didn't have any of those things that I described. This is a sub 5'10" player who was not a sub 4'5". A Joe, a Jimmy, whichever one of those you want to call, a playmaker around the football. How do you think that happened? Do you think it was, well, I've already debunked the physical characteristics. Like I said, he didn't match any of that stuff. He was not built like Patrick Peterson, if you want to grab another LSU guy. Not built like that, okay? Didn't have those physical characteristics. Technique, okay. I wouldn't call him Revis or Surtain the second in terms of technique, but the man had an elite IQ. Tell me you wouldn't like to have a secondary of 4 or 5 Tyrann Mathieu. Understands what the offense is doing, knows where he needs to be on defense, puts those things together to end up where the ball is going to be 9.5 times out of 10. That's the player you need to be. So if you're one of those guys that would have answered that poll question that I put out there in a similar fashion that most other guys did, I'd rather have the speed. I'd rather have the height. I'd rather have the technique. I don't know. You might want to flip your thinking. Okay. Do pursue all of those things. Yes. Lift your weights. Be strong. Go run the track. Be fast. All right. You can only do so much about your height. You know, get enough sleep, but we know that's genetically controlled. And do work on your technique. But I'm telling you, if you think you can do those things in the point of sacrificing your knowledge of the game and your football IQ, your career is going to end quicker than you want it to end. Smart players last. Smart players continue through on this journey. Okay, if you're going to be a not so smart player, I don't want to use the word dumb, but if you're going to be a dumb player, it ends for you fast. It ends for you quick in a hurry. That's how this thing ends up happening. I don't know what's going on here, so let's just try and find out where this is coming from. All right, we got rid of that. Popped out of nowhere. These things happen every now and then. And anyway, you need an IQ. How do we develop this IQ? The IQ basically comes from watching enough football. Okay. When football is on, try to watch it. I have to say that because, it's kind of a thing with this era and generation. And I'm not here to jump on the younger generation. There are enough people trying to do that. I am fully aware that there are more options to occupy your time when it's free. Okay. There are phones, there's the internet, there's social media, there's all these things available to you guys that weren't available to me when I was your age. So I get it. There are a lot of distractions out there. So with the amount of distractions that are out there, you are now going to have to find more discipline. Become disciplined, watch enough football. Yes, there's that film that you need to watch every week of your opponent. You also need to watch film of yourself at practice. You also need to study your playbook so that you know it inside and out. This is not the first time that I've said this. If you're a person that has watched all of my material, this is not the first time that you're hearing this. But it does bear repeating because a lot of guys study the playbook just enough to know their job, and then they think they're done studying the playbook and knowing their defense. Your true playmaking ability is going to start happening with more regularity and not sheer luck when you know your job and the job of everyone else around you. Now you don't get baited. You don't get pulled out of a zone. You don't get tricked because you know who's supposed to be there. Not only do you know where you're supposed to be, you know who's supposed to be in this other area right here. So there's no thought at all. Because sometimes all a quarterback needs is a hesitation from you. A hesitation from you in your zone to beat you in your zone. And the more you know about what's supposed to happen around you, the less you hesitate. So if you're supposed to be in the curl and someone else is supposed to be in the flat, and you know who's supposed to be in the flat, a look by the quarterback to the flat or a route running to the flat does not make you pause. You continue on with your responsibility, knowing full well what's supposed to be in the flat, which is a linebacker or someone else. You know it's not you, so you don't hesitate. So you can cover down in your area and you know someone else is going to have that. Or that area is supposed to be open and you guys are just rallying to that, whatever the case may be. So you continue to study your playbook. You continue to watch ball. And not only the guys that you're going to play against, but when you watch football as a regular occurrence, you're watching a college football game or you're watching an NFL game, do some work on trying to predict what's coming next. Understand how coaches sequence plays, what they like to call on downs and distances. What's the norm? What do coaches like to do when it's 2nd and 10? What do they normally do if it's 3rd and 3 versus 3rd and 8? What type of routes do you get? What type of things get called? What type of plays come your way? Where do they call certain plays on certain parts of the field? What kind of plays do coaches like to call from midfield as opposed to plays that they call when they're down on their end versus how they call plays when they get into your area of the field or they get into the red zone, 20 yards and going in? You need to understand those things, all right? And the only way for you to truly, truly understand it is to watch football with that in mind. Try to diagnose and figure out what is the next play that's going to be called by this offense based on the down and distance. Then you see the formation come out. What's most likely to be run when you see them in this formation? What's most likely to be run when the quarterback takes a 3-step drop, a 5-step drop, or when he's in shotgun versus a rollout and all those other things? Then you just start noticing formations. What do teams typically do when there's a trips formation? What do they typically do when there's a 2-back formation? What do they typically do when it's 2-by-2 or when a tight end's in a game or when 2 tight ends in a game? Start watching football and asking those questions and getting those answers. You keep asking those questions. You keep getting those answers. You start to generate a really good high football IQ. And the more you do that, the more it'll get stuck into your head. And now that's less thinking for you when you're out on the field. You don't have to think about those things. That's how much you need to watch it. You don't even think about it anymore. It's like tying your shoes. It's like riding a bike. I don't have to think about it. All right. For you guys that are driving and have been driving for a while, it's like driving. You don't have to think like you did when you first got in a car to learn how to drive. You don't have to think about how to, start the car or press the gas, the steering wheel. You don't think about these things. You've done it so much. That's how much you need to watch ball. That's how much you need to study your playbook. So if you're in that mode of everything else over IQ's falling somewhere last, I'm telling you right now, pull your IQ and start moving that to the front of what you need. That's going to make you last as a football player. The other thing is take advantage of your resources. like this. You know, when you have a chance to get a hold of resources and learn about the game, you get stuff like this. You join the All Eyes DB Camp members area. You watch videos that I put out on YouTube and other guys put out on YouTube. Up your IQ by knowing these things. Knowledge is the key. That is going to be the key for you. So please, a young player, if you're thinking otherwise, that it's just about your physical training, adjust your thinking. You need an IQ. So put that in your pipe and smoke it, as my grandmother used to say. Time now for our Q&A session. I take a question each week from the users, watchers, anyone out there that wants to ask one. And the best way to do that is to reply to this Indy Drills podcast that you're watching or listening to right now. Drop it in the form of a comment down below. Ask your question. If I choose it to be on the next show, you will see it on the next show. Otherwise, I am going to answer your question one way or another. But just one question I'll end up choosing, and I will read it off and answer it live. Well, not live, but on the next Indy Drills podcast. This one today comes from Keenan in Arizona. Do you prefer two-hand or one-hand jam and press? I always chuckle a little bit, and nothing against you, Keenan. I always chuckle a little bit when I get this question. There are people out there that would say, you'll never jam with two hands. And I think that's absolutely crazy. When a receiver comes straight towards you and he's right in front of you and he's damn near on your toes, how do you know if you're a guy that says only one hand, never jam with two, how do you know which hand to strike with? Outside hand, inside hand every time? Right hand every time, left hand every time? What is the deal? What you non-two-hand jam guys, what do you do? To answer your question, Keenan, you two-hand and you one-hand jam. Let's explain how that works. Most good receivers will attack the space that is in between you and him before they exit on their route and press. A lot of receivers, good ones, will not just take off, knowing there's space between you and him, will not just take off left or right to get into their route because they know that you're going to use that space to cut them off. If you're a decent defensive back, you won't just open the gate and start running. A good defensive back would kick slide or move laterally. Hopefully it's a kick slide and cut off the receiver's route if the receiver just allows that space to exist between you and him immediately when he takes off from the line of scrimmage. So with that being the case, many good receivers will come forward first into your space as far as you will allow them to be, and then they will exit. Now, I said allow. The way you stop allowing that is you have to execute a jam. And what you need to do is make that a bad experience. You need to take firm control of that receiver when he gets too close to you. The way you're going to do that is with a two-hand jam. So in that scenario where a receiver's right in front of you and he's in your frame. So if you're watching this, sorry for my podcast audience that is not watching this, I'm going to do my best to describe it. But if the receiver is within your frame, that means he's solidly in front of you. He's not outside one of your shoulders. He's right here in front of you. You need to execute a two-hand jam. You need to try and get solid control over him, or at least jar the heck out of him to make him not want to continue doing that. Now, some receivers love all the contact and they'll just continue to do that. That's fine with us. If you want to be a lover of contact, you're just going to get a bunch of contact and we're going to delay your releases all day long. You may think you're strong, but I'm going to really delay your releases and your quarterback might not like you engaging in that activity. Okay. Whatever the case may be, that receiver comes directly and forward in front of you and he's within your frame, two-hand jam. Now, when he slides outside of you and he moves from right in front of your frame and he moves off to the left or to the right or to the outside or the inside, depending on how you want to think about it, that's when you use a one-hand jam. Now, it does not make sense to use a two-hand jam because that two-hand jam with a receiver outside of your frame getting ready to run up the field is going to lock your hips. Okay, so again, sorry for my audience on the podcast, but if you're watching me on YouTube and the receiver's here, and then he slides over to here, and he's getting ready to run by you, putting two hands here, this outside hand that you're trying to reach with is going to not allow your hips to open. It's going to lock your hips. He gets outside of your arm. Your hips are locked. He takes a step behind you. It's going to take you a couple of steps to turn and get your hips like his. And by then, he's already gone. So that's what we mean by not locking your hips. So instead of throwing the two hands, you shoot this inside hand. It allows your outside hip to be able to open and run down the field if and when he does that. So you're still being solid. You're still, owning your space and trying to be aggressive versus that receiver by using the offhand, but you're not being over aggressive by shooting this outside hand and locking your hips. So now you can't run with the receiver. So in that case, use one hand. What if the receiver takes off and runs outside right away? Well, then in that situation, we're using no hands. So it's possible during a rep, a receiver comes right at you, you use two hands. He moves outside, you're using one hand, and he continues running outside away from you. Now it's no hands, okay? Some coaches teach that. Two hands, one hand, no hand, all right? Some guys do that. So the answer to your question is, I prefer the jam that is necessary for the action that is happening in front of me. If he's straight ahead, two hands. If he's shaded outside of me, one hand. If he's all the way outside of my frame and getting ready to run, well, then now that's no hand. So I would tell you to not take a preference, not have a preference, because if you take this preference, then there's a really good chance you're going to execute the wrong kind of jam at the wrong time. If you're a guy that says, I just want one hand jams, and the receiver comes straight to you, you're going to just throw that one hand. You're not going to get enough force on him with one hand. Two hands better than one when it's about force and strength and all that. And then there's a chance he could get to this elbow, this outside elbow, lock it and get beyond you. Okay. And you could say, well, man, what if I threw two? He could still get that outside elbow. When you throw two and it gets this outside elbow, you still have the opportunity to get some control and push with some force with that other arm to delay him going down the field. If you have this hand sitting here and this is the only one that hits him, all right, the outside hand's the only one that's hitting him because you don't like two-hand jams, and he gets that outside elbow of the hand you used to jam with, you don't have that other hand on him to create any force to delay him going beyond you. He gets that elbow, takes off full speed, and you're going to have a problem. You're going to be in a trail position, and that's not the position we want to be in as press corner. So I hope that answered your question, Keenan. There is no preference. It's whatever is needed at the time to do the job. So this question is like telling a mechanic, what's the one tool that you're going to use when you're going to fix a car? Well, you know what? I'm going to need several tools. I'm going to need a screwdriver. I might need a hammer. I might need a ratchet, might need a wrench. So all of those tools need to be available to you. And in this case, both the two-hand and the one-hand jam. And then, like I said, no hand. All right. We don't consider those a jam, but if you're beating a guy down and he doesn't want that contact and he's running away from you most of the time, that's a jam, in my opinion. If fear of coming into your area makes a guy run all the way outside, that's jam to me.
Hey, while you're out there training to be the part, might as well look the part. Sometimes you just got to fake it till you make it. And one of the best ways to do that is with gear like this from the All Eyes DB Camp shop. A wise man once said, when you feel good, you look good. When you look good, you play good. When you play good, they pay good. Now you can look good when you head over to All Eyes DB Camp shop. You get shirts like this, Play Defense t-shirt. I got long sleeves, I've got shorts, I've got no sleeves, I've got arm sleeves. Everything you need to look like the DB you think you're going to be. Head on over, have a link to it down below. Go get dressed up now.
Because what are we trying to do when we jam a guy? We're trying to get him all the way outside or all the way inside and get him off of this mark. And if he was so fearful of your hands that he went out there and did the job for us, I will consider that a jam. All right, so that's that question there. Once again, for all of you out there listening, if you do have a question, the DB questions, anything on technique, whatever it might be, might want to ask me something about my pass or whoever, the journey of being a defensive back or who I thought was the best safety or corner or whatever the question may be. Feel free to do that. Use the comment section down below if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on Anchor, you can ask questions on Anchor. Check to see if your particular streaming device allows you to ask a question in the comment section or anything like that. If so, use it there. Outside of that, though, if you have a question, you can send it to me to cwilson@alleye'sdbcamp.com. Once again, that's cwilson@alleye'sdbcamp.com. All right, moving along to our final topic, and that is baiting the quarterback. Now, I've talked about on this channel disguising coverages so that you can, not give quarterbacks an easy read, not give receivers an easy read, because believe it or not, for you guys young in the game, receivers are reading the coverage as well. Okay, it's not just solely the job of the quarterback to read the coverage. Receivers must also read the coverage as well, because their routes sometimes depend on the coverage that's being run, and there are little adjustments that they might have to make in there. They may full on have to make an entirely different, they might have to run an entirely different route based on the coverage. So both of those position groups are reading the coverage. And so I've talked about disguising the coverage, but what I've not really talked about is baiting the quarterback. And when you start going up against better quarterbacks, you have to start using some tactics. You'll use this against all kind of quarterbacks, the young, the old, the smarter, and the not so smart. It works on all of them. But it's a really nice thing to be able to do, having your tool bag, feel confident doing. I'm talking to both my coaches and players right now. It is a really good thing to have at your disposal, the ability to bait the quarterback. And there, the major ways that we do this, obviously, are going to be in zones. But if you have a high performer, that has a lot of physical gifts, they can even bait the quarterback in man as well, kind of Deion Sanders-esque. You hang back, and then because you have the speed, once the ball goes up in the air, once you've convinced the quarterback that his receiver is sufficiently enough open that the ball could be fit in there, you go and you close the space with speed and do that. Perhaps you are able to do that now. There's only a one-in-a-kind Deion Sanders at his prime, but perhaps you're covering a receiver that you're that much faster than, but the quarterback would like to get the ball to him. You can bait the quarterback doing that. I would urge you with great caution in doing that. You better be sure that you're that much faster than that guy, and that he won't open up on you and you won't be able to close that space, or even he'd pull away from you. You better be certain that you're that much faster than that guy if you want to bait in man. Another example of baiting would be something like bail, but that comes from a call, and that falls a little bit more under the category of disguising a coverage, right? You're up there, you're pressing a wide receiver, and you're giving off the impression that it's press man. It's some kind of cover one, maybe in a cover zero, something like that. Right before the snap, you take a step out and you bail out of there. That's a bit of a bait, but more of a coverage disguise, because that's actually part of the coverage. When I talk about baiting, primarily what I'm talking about is in a zone coverage, you give the impression that you're going to be in one area, then end up in a totally different area. One of the all-time best at that bait type of thing was Ed Reed, especially in zones. Okay, there's a great video out there of Bill Belichick talking rather glowingly about Ed Reed. I believe it was Ed Reed was right then and there when he was talking about it. I think there was like a panel they had on NFL Network or something like that, talking about great defensive backs or pass coverage or something like that.
It wasn't a route combination. It was a go.
Yeah, it was a go route.
He was going backside to Wayne on the go.
Yeah. So he had it all set up.
I'm sure he was dreaming about it at night. He starts, he opens to the middle of the field. As soon as he takes 2 steps in the midfield, he turns in wheels, turns his back on the quarterback, and beats Wayne to the ball. Best play I've ever seen a free safety make. One of the greatest plays I've ever seen in the NFL.
Bill Belichick was telling Ed Reed what a great play he made against Peyton Manning, baiting Peyton Manning to think that he was going to be over the top or to the other side of the field when he was a post safety, and he spins around and comes back in the other direction and ends up picking off a pass. So when I'm talking about baiting, that's what I'm talking about. Now, a lot of this is for our safeties and maybe even linebackers, but corners can do this as well, and I'll give you some examples of that. For a corner, one of the biggest conflicts that we get put in is when we're playing cover 2 and we get a route right in front of us and then a route behind us. Because as you know, in cover 2, we're responsible for the flat the majority of the time, but there are also situations where we're responsible to get back and get up underneath a 7 route or run on a route that's going deep if there's no threat to us in the flat, things of that nature. It's called a hole shot that quarterbacks like to attack in cover 2. And when you truly understand the coverage, as I spoke about before, when you truly understand what it is you're supposed to be doing in the coverage, plus what is happening all around you, plus you understand what kind of look that quarterback is going to be seeing. That's now when you get a full understanding of football and you have a top IQ and you can now make plays. You start to picture what it is that quarterback is looking at and what he's seeing and what he's going to try and accomplish. So using that example again, you get some kind of a smash concept, which is a hitch route by the outside receiver, the number 1 guy, and an inside receiver, and the number 2 guy runs and breaks to the corner behind you as a cornerback. You understand that you're the one that's being attacked and they're like giving you a high-low option, trying to make you wrong. You know that quarterback would really love to have that corner ball, but will take the hitch route if given to him. A way that you could bait him is take a couple of steps down to that hitch like you're going to jump it, and before he even has a chance to really, when you think he's made that decision, which would be rather quickly if you take those 2 steps down to the hitch, before he can actually release that football, you plant and just start running back to that 7 ball. That's a way that you could bait the quarterback and appear in that window as that ball is coming into the hole, as he's trying to hit that 7 route in between you and the safety that should be coming over. That's a situation of being able to bait. For underneath coverage, let's say you are supposed to be a curl defender and you're an outside linebacker or you're a nickelback. The coverage that you're in is supposed to have you in the curl. And immediately upon the snap of the ball, as the quarterback is taking those initial steps away from the center or, from the shotgun snap, you go and buzz to that flat right away and then immediately plant and come right back into the curl. There's a lot of times you could bait a quarterback into a throw into that curl area, into that seam area. You have to know what you're doing. And so the overarching thing I want to say here is baiting the quarterback is for an advanced player. And if you want to be that advanced player, speed up your knowledge, speed up your game knowledge, totally understand grab a total understanding of your coverages, grab a total understanding of how offenses attack you. The best way to do that is to study and use your resources. Like I said, the book that I have here, or the All Eyes DB Camp members here, that's how you speed up your IQ and become an advanced player before you would normally become an advanced player. This technique of baiting is for advanced players. And what I'm telling you is for an advanced player. So in that situation, linebacker's responsible for the curl, but he buzzes to the flat right now. Quarterback's dropping and he sees you buzzing to that flat. What's going to happen is no one's in that curl area because you're supposed to be in that curl area. So he starts making up his mind where he wants to go with that ball as the routes start to unfold. He knows the routes that are supposed to be run. He's going to read usually the underneath guys right away. All right, unless it's some kind of play action and he needs to read a safety or something like that. He's reading your initial steps. He can't sit there and stare at you. So off the initial steps, he gets a picture. Okay, you're going to the flat. Nothing's going to be in the curl. He might have to take his eyes now and scan another area, but in his mind, that curl is open because I saw you buzz to the flat. As he's dropping now, nothing else tells him that is another player from the middle, let's say, is going to come over to that curl area. So now he's making up his mind to throw that ball in the curl area. Meanwhile, you took your first few steps out to the flat, you planted and came back into that curl area. And now he makes that decision to throw into the curl, and there you are. All right. You appeared in there. You baited him thinking that curl was open, but here you are in that curl area. A bait situation you could take from last night's play with Devin Lloyd. He was baiting the quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, about as elite a quarterback as there is in the league, in the game of football, anywhere in this world. Baited him into that throw to the hook by coming down and lining up in that A gap, making the offense and Patrick Mahomes think that he was going to blitz. And by doing so, there was going to be an open space right behind the line of scrimmage where his receiver was bending in on a slant. As the ball was snapped, he gave a jerk move like he was going to come through that A-gap, planted, and ran immediately out into the hook. This is similar to what I'm telling you about buzzing to the flat end and immediately turning into the curl. And there he was. He just jumped in the hook by the time Patrick Mahomes had made the decision to throw that slant that was appearing in the hook area, interception, 99-yard touchdown, big play in the game. That's what I mean by baiting the quarterback. For you safeties, you could do something similar to what an Ed Reed did. What it pretty much boils down to for you as a safety is show you going to one area initially, 2 or 3 steps, and then go appear in another area. That's a lot of what baiting is. You'll see a lot of guys, safeties, bait when they have to play like a robber coverage. Okay, so the robber coverage calls for there's 2 safeties usually on either hash, and one has to drop down into the middle of the field. Now, if you look at a playbook and you see that coverage on paper, it calls for that one safety to come immediately down into that middle area to take the throws away. What you'll see a lot of pros or experienced safeties do in that coverage is they'll just kind of hang right there on that hash. They might even walk down straight on that hash a little bit after the ball is snapped, and they don't run there right away. What they're attempting to do is make the quarterback think that that little low hole area is open, and when that route bends in there, whether it's a dig or a slant or, a curl, the safety that's supposed to be the robber will just kind of hang, read the quarterback's eyes, and then the moment he thinks he's made that decision to throw into the middle of the field, he'll jump right in there and get to his ultimate robber responsibility, jump in front of that throw and pick it off. That's what they're trying to do. So that's basically what baiting is. You will see a player that's supposed to be in the post. When he's lined up on the hash as a safety, he'll open to the outside off the hash like he's going to the sidelines, and then he'll just wheel around really fast and go to the post. Okay, it's basically for you as safeties taking your first few steps away from the zone that you're ultimately going to be in. Give the quarterback a picture of it being one thing and then immediately changing the picture so that he's baited into a throw that he's not supposed to make. And that's basically what baiting is. But again, I need to give you the guidelines on this. A, you have to really know your defense, okay, so that you're not upsetting the whole idea of what it is you're trying to do back there. B, you've got to totally understand what offenses are doing and really try to get inside of the mind of the quarterback, okay? It makes no sense trying to give him a picture of something if you don't know, what he would be thinking. That's a difficult thing to do, and you're probably going to make some mistakes. So when you have a true idea of what that quarterback's going to be thinking, now you can bait him into something, okay? So you've got to have an understanding of that. So that's another reason for you to continue to up your IQ. Learn offenses. Don't just learn your defense. Learn offenses. So now you can go bait the quarterback, all right? So if you want to be a guy that baits the QB and have that as a reputation, these are the things that you're going to need to do. The final thing is just having the discipline, okay? If you are going to go bait and you're going to go leave your area to eventually end up in your area, do eventually end up in your area. Not all baits are going to work. So in this instance, this example, if you're a guy lining up on the hash pre-snap and you're supposed to be in the post and you take a couple of steps to the outside, don't get so caught up and undisciplined that you stay out there because, you saw something and you think he's going to be there and you totally abandon your responsibility in the middle of the field. And you just leave everything hung out to dry because you think you saw some. That's not going to be it. That's not how you're going to need to do this. Sometimes your baiting won't work. You'll go out there and the quarterback won't take the bait, but you still need to get back to the middle of the field because he might play you. The quarterback might bait you. While you're baiting him, he might be baiting you. It's a whole chess game out there. You don't want to get baited. Take some eye candy over by the sidelines when you're supposed to be in the middle of the field ultimately. Ultimately, get to your area of the field that you need to be, unless, of course, the ball is thrown, you see it out of the quarterback's hands, and then now you're going to go where the ball is. But don't get stuck over there and the ball's still in the quarterback's hands. He baits you, leaves you by the sidelines when you're supposed to be in the post, and he hits a ball in the post. What that would do is destroy the trust of the other players around you who were expecting you to be in a certain area. That happens enough, then their lack of trust causes them to do things that they're not supposed to do. So now they're not doing what they're supposed to do. You're not doing what you're supposed to do. And then you have a whole helter-skelter situation, and that gets to be really, really bad. And that's just going to affect the whole defense. So the final piece to your baiting is you're going to have to be disciplined and realize that not all the time when you bait the QB, it's going to work. Ultimately, end up where you're supposed to be. Have your ultimate coverage responsibility handled after the play has been snapped and you tried your bait, right? I hope you guys understood that. But that's something for you to put in your tool belt if and only if you are advanced. So you guys want to be like a Tyrann Mathieu, you want to be like an Ed Reed, you want to be that type of player that can bait a quarterback, start studying now. All right, start studying now. Start understanding your defense. All right, study the playbook. Watch football with a careful investigative eye and an anticipatory eye where you try to guess what's the next play that's coming. All right. Try to diagnose what is happening offensively when you're watching football casually. Do watch and study your film of your opponent. Get your resources like this 101 DB tips with tips on all types of things. How to play man, how to play zone, how to study film. All right. That and a whole lot more in this book. Take advantage of that resource. Join the All Eyes DB Camp members area where I'm breaking things down on a daily and weekly basis in there, and you're able to totally understand coverages because I break a lot of coverages down in there as well. I explain them to you. I break down technique. I talk about how offenses attack, the route combinations that they do, the formations that they line up in, what to expect out of those things. All of those things are in there for you to up your IQ so that you can become a really good defender that can bait the quarterback. So you're accelerating your IQ so that you can move to that advanced level and you start piling up the interceptions and you become Ed Reed like Tyrann Mathieu, like you become that kind of player. All right, that's going to do it for me. That's going to wrap up my time here on this Indy Drills podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, give the video a like, share it with your friends. Don't hog all of the knowledge. And by all means, hit that subscribe button. Plus, hit the links down below for the 101 DB Tips book, as well as joining the All Eyes DB Camp members area and all those things. You need those resources. Smart players, intelligent players, guys that succeed, take advantage of their resources. All right, that's it for me. Appreciate you guys joining me. And as always, All Eyes DB Camp, consistency breeds results.